against bandits that were on horseback and they couldn't reach them. You put them on a chain and flung them this way and then over the top, because this coming over the top and stabbing you in the back, and then they yank backwards. Really cool. Or down the front into the rib cage, because then when you pull down, you're using the rib cage as... Never mind. But the Kasarigama, they originally attached a chain to it so that peasants could reach people who were mounted on horseback, because otherwise you just kind of would throw it at them, and either way you didn't have a weapon anymore. I mean, the kama was not a boomerang. See what you call a boomerang that doesn't come back?
A stick?
A stick. Very cute. It's not a tremendously difficult joke, but
it's still early morning.
Yeah. So kama, very effective weapon, but still in the farm implement category. The next one actually is my favorite samurai. I mean, ninja weapon of death. It's a chain. Not very complicated. Ghost Rider carries a really cool one. I mean, not that I know anything about comic books or bad, really bad, cheesy Nicolas Cage movies that they're now making a sequel to. Can you believe it?
Oh, that movie was great.
I'm with her on that one.
A sequel, and I can't remember who the other big actor is that's going to be in it, but it's called Vengeance, which I assume means they're going to have that guy. Anyway, I like the movie. The chain.
That's my favorite movie.
In Japanese, it's the manriki. And while you have all the mythology, oh, it's the chain of 1,000, the strength of 1,000 men, you can make up whatever names you want. But the manriki, if you find them in the catalogs today, most of the martial art companies are selling really lightweight chains that are either 18 or 28 inches long. And when you see them being used, the video, it's always this again. Whoa. Hold the one weight in your left hand and you're spinning it, because this is how you face down a man with two swords. You spin a chain, and at just the right time you go wah and zing it out, and you cause a boo-boo. Okay. Hitting somebody with this is going to be painful. It would probably get me a lawsuit if I hit one of you, but it would not, in fact, end a fight. That's not what made this an effective weapon. And very, very common with the samurai. Because Japanese etiquette, you did not wear the longsword indoors. Go in the house. You know, in this country we used to have to take off our hats. Now you don't. Even public schools let kids wear hats indoors now. But you used to come in, you take off your hat, your coat, that sort of thing. Japan, you took the longsword off. Small houses with paper walls, somehow carrying a long sword like this.
Rip.
Made sense. Take the sword off, put it on the wall.
Take your shoes off.
So the samurai indoors were could be unarmed. That doesn't mean the bad guy was unarmed, though, because they're not going to really, if they break into your house, they're not going to wipe their feet on the mat and take their sword off. So what the Japanese warriors did was they took chain, and don't worry, this is the only thing coming off. I can't afford those kind of therapy bills.
No.
What the Japanese did is they took chain and they cut it to fit their waist. You attached a weight at each end, and then, now look, I'm wearing a martial arts gi for this panel because it's the black, the whole ninja. Okay, but if you're familiar with Japanese clothing, the obi, it's a belt. It's broader than just a gi belt normally. Okay, for men's fashion, they tended to run about 4 inches, and the ladies' formal kimonos, you're looking at those big 6-inch and even bigger. So assume this is a little bit broader and wider. What you did was you cut a chain so that it would fit around your waist. You put a weight on each end, and you made it just long enough that the ends would loop. Like this. And then the ends tucked into the top part of the hakama. Like so. And the chain just fit inside your obi. Okay? It did 2 things. Number 1, meant that you couldn't see it. Now, I know what you're thinking. I can see the sides. That's the whole obi being wider than my gi belt. You can still see it a little bit. The other thing it did was it muffled it. No chain links going rattle, rattle, rattle. Okay? If you didn't have a weapon, and someone was going to attack you, not that she would ever have reason to attack me, instead of reaching forwards going, no! Getting your hands cut off, you reach behind you, just enough. You're finding the loops and putting them in the palm of each hand, and then you're going to bring your hands, let the chain hang down. You bring your hands forwards like this. Pulls right out of the obi, and what you have is a metal, flexible shield. Attack comes in, and you're bringing that forwards, going, no, don't kill me. You want to try to get the hands, not the sword, because it'll stop a sword strike, but it's not really recommended for somebody hammering down over and over again, and you're holding up a chain going, no, because you'll lose. Okay? But it's metal, and it'll stop a blade at least once. Knife attack, other things. And then what you have is you have a really effective weapon for trapping and pulling. And can you put the sword back down and get a knife? Somehow you with the sword in your hand makes me really nervous, and the knife just makes me a little bit nervous. But we go back to the same thing. They attack, and you're going here and wrapping it up. Look familiar? Pressure on the radius and ulna, and then pull back on the forearm, so you're putting pressure on the elbow for the takedown. And looping it once, I have flexible chain to play with. Attack comes in. Oh no, do the same attack. I like that one. Here, and you're wrapping this over the top to control the hand. See this? Looping it across the knuckles. It's called brass knuckles. And while you tie this up and then pin it against your chest so she can't do a whole lot, you're going, stop it, stop it. So you actually have the capacity to block, trap, and hit. And you remember all the really cool things that we did with the nunchaku going around the head and stuff. You have no idea how much fun entangling things can be with a chain. Hi. Oh. So while you could take this and go, wow, I'm going to get you, she's not going to be very impressed with that. The truth is, you're going to survive me hitting you with this. So if the person's trying to hurt you and they have a knife and you have this and you're going like this, they're going to charge straight at you. Because the worst thing you can do is hit them with it. And then while you're congratulating yourself for hitting them, they're going to rush in and stab you about 12 times. Okay? But if you use this correctly and make them attack you, or you can hit them, block, tie it up, do all kinds of... The Manriki was a very successful idea. It's just unfortunate that you don't see a lot of this being taught for Japanese weaponry because it's not very exotic. Filipino martial arts actually uses flexible weapons like this more, but since we don't carry links of chain around our waist anymore, you find a lot of the same techniques taught with, of all things, a bath towel. And as the bath towel, as the locker room weapon of choice to go snap, you realize that's going to raise a welt, but if you twist it up and use it as something to wrap around their neck, you can actually strangle somebody with it. What?
Moving on.
Fine, no more chain. The ultimate ninja weapon of death. The shuriken. The shaken means small blade. They come all shapes and sizes. Okay? We'll put the shiny one down because I get fingerprints all over it. We use the big, nasty shuriken of death. And the idea is, of course, you see Shokasugi's 80s ninja movies and 8 million ways to die, and he takes that and he goes, wah! You're not dead. It didn't work. They throw him about 150 yards and it goes through his throat and it comes all the way back and then they catch it. Oh, no, that was Blade.
Wesley Snipes?
Yeah! Passenger 57, Streets of Gold. First movie, 80s boxing movie. Amazing.
Look it up.
Now the IRS wants him. Have you seen his last couple movies? The IRS is the only group that wants him. I didn't say that out loud. The shuriken. This is kind of famous for being able to kill people from long distances. the reality is a thrown weapon has a very limited range for being able to actually kill someone. That includes knife throwing, and generally they say 10 yards. If you get beyond 30 feet, you're better off to not throw it. The longest recorded kill with a it was with a knife. World War I, American Indian killed someone from 87 feet away. The knife. Remember, World War I, we're still doing trench warfare, and they were out of bullets, and instead of just throwing rotten fruit across the lines at each other, which they did, guy stood up and was yelling and being obnoxious, and this guy took his... It wasn't a K-bar, that was World War II. World War I, the trench knives, and threw it. 87 feet, killed it. But generally, don't ask why I know these things. Generally, they weren't designed to kill someone. This was a distraction. And you have to admit, having someone throw a razor-sharp piece of metal at you is a wonderful distraction.
Yes, it is.
So they're thinking, it was a ninja weapon. Wasn't just a ninja weapon. The reason why I'm wearing the hakama isn't because I'm comfortable in a dress. This panel on the back of the hakama sits on top of the obi. One of the things the Japanese would do is sew a pocket on that. So you have the different shapes for these. If you have the straight ones, they were generally worn on a sleeve. Remember the Japanese kimono, big baggy sleeves? You would have a sleeve. I don't have a sleeve. I'll use my wonderful bracelet. You have a pen? They were straight. You wore them in this way with the edge in. Oh, yay. It's a little thick. This way. Sleeve down. You're walking around because it's cold. If you need a weapon, this hand comes under. You pull it out. And strangely enough, the straight ones, if you spend time with throwing weapons, by design, not just because your wife's angry and throwing things at you. The straight ones weren't thrown like this, where you threw them end for end. Remember, close range, 10 yards and in. You drew it out this way, and you actually trapped it like this, and you would throw them this way. Overhand too, sometimes, but overhand had a tendency you'd hold on to it too long, and it would end up going downwards. So generally here, and then forwards and out. Got really good at throwing knives and stuff that way from that range, but those were for the spikes, the throwing spikes you see. The throwing stars would generally came in the 4-sided or the 8. 8-sided is more accurate for long distances if you're playing throwing at targets, but they weren't as common to carry. The 4-sided was what Japanese would carry, because we start talking about that pocket. You just put a small lining there and you just set one in the pocket. This is why. Remember I said at the very beginning of the lecture when I started getting semi-serious? Caste system, samurai carried the swords, the peasants didn't. Because of that, samurai walking on the street, swords on this side. Peasant wants to, and their friends, the whole horde waiting to drag me down. If I can draw the sword, the fight's over. I have a sword, you don't, you're going to lose. The goal then is to keep me from drawing the sword. That's where a lot of the arrest techniques and everything came from. So reaching forwards meant, bad guy is going to grab onto me, I'm not going to be able to draw the sword. If I'm being rushed and attacked, then rather than stepping forwards and reaching forwards with the arm, they would step back, keep the arm out of the way, pull this out of the top pocket, and as she's coming forward, step back and go, no! Remember I mentioned that throwing a sharp piece of metal at somebody from close range is a wonderful distraction? And while she goes, ah! I draw the sword out and she goes, it's just a flesh wound. Then I come forward and go, oh yeah? And end the fight. So they were a tremendous tool for distracting and giving themselves enough time to draw their swords and fight with them. Onto the ninja mythology. These were coated in poison. Deadly poison. The slightest scratch, and you're dead in seconds. Here's the reality check. Okay? You take something that has 4 points, 8 sides, you carefully coat